This time we're doing another 5-speed conversion. So this time it's going to be on Meghan's 94 Legacy L. So this is going to be sort of a swap in a weekend. This should be about the easiest way to do this if you're wanting to do it at home. We got a 5-speed transmission from a 92 or 93 Legacy, I forget. It's 411 final drive. We got the matching rear diff right there. We need the pedal assembly with the clutch and brake pedal on it. Shifter assembly, shift cable. You need the trim piece that goes in on the shifter, and then you also need the drive line. And in here we got the clutch kit. We got a new shift boot and a shift knob, and so it's all in there. We got a flywheel over there. So this should let us use all the same axles and hubs and all that stuff, so we're basically just swapping the transmission over. Okay, so we got the car up as high as we can. Another thing, if you guys are doing this at home, you're going to want to get all of the bolts and everything you take off of the donor car. Like certain ones like the bell housing bolts, and like flywheel bolts and clutch, like pressure plate bolts and all that stuff. You're not going to have, obviously, because your car is auto, so it's easier just to get everything. Also, like all the hardware and everything for the shifter assembly, the springs, the clutch pedal stuff, all the little bolts and little tiny things that end up being a pain. Also, you need to make sure you get a starter, because the manual starter is different than the automatic starter, because this section of the bell housing right here is thicker on an automatic, so it's a little different. So working on taking the front seat out right now, so we can get access to the pedals easier and stuff like that. Going to take all the intake and all that stuff apart so we can get the torque converter bolts out and all that next. We got the exhaust off. We just took it all off in one piece. Just unplugged the O2 sensor and pulled it out. She's working on getting the pedals out. You have to drop the steering column right here, which is just two 12mm bolts, and then it just kind of hangs there like that. You got most of the shifter assembly taken apart. You do have to cut the two wires that go to the manual button. So that's cut. And this is like the light bulb that goes to it. So just take it off the bolts that hold in the pedal, undo the sensor, and I'm going to start working on like the axles and stuff like that. Alright, so she got the brake pedal out. It's just the 4 bolts on the back and the 2 on the top. And then you take the little pin out for the pedal and unplug the connector there for the sensor. And you have to kind of like fish it out to the side. It's kind of a pain. I just went and popped these ball joints out. So you just take the 14mm bolt out from right there, and then you take the axle pin out, and this whole thing can just pop off. Okay, so we ripped out the transmission cooler lines that go to the radiator right there. There's 2 10mm bolts and a 12mm that hold it in. We got the transmission draining. Right now it's pretty much already drained. So we're gonna do our first bit of wiring. We gotta do. We made one of these little jumpers right here. We just cut this off of the shifter assembly. This is the one that goes in right here, that little guy. And so basically all we're doing is connecting these 2 wires, because that's what this little sensor does on the shifter when you put it in park. It's these 2 wires right here. So when you put it in park, all it does is connect those 2 and lets you take the key out of the car. So just make one of those, little barrel connector, and plug it in, and you're done. Okay, so we just popped the rear main seal out. We also took the oil plate off. So the old one is the old like plastic style that I think 92 through 94 have. It's a crappy plastic one. They have a replacement part at Subaru. So this one's metal and it has special Allen key bolts that it uses, and one right here has a special Loctite on it, so you got to make sure the special one goes in the right hole. Okay, first we got our new flywheel here. Well, not new, it's been resurfaced once. It's got a few little hot spots on it and stuff, but it should be okay. We got the brand new OEM pilot bearing, so I popped the old one out, and we're just gonna use this 25mm socket to just kind of tap it in there until it's kind of flush, and then we can put the seals on and get that going. So we're just applying RTV around the oil plate right now. Got it all clean, so just put a nice little layer on there, and then we can put the new oil plate on.
So rear main seal is in and oil plate is in. Alright, so Preston's working on getting the flywheel in, and I'm going to start working on getting the pedals in.
Alright, so we got the pedals all in and everything's hooked up. It just bolted in the factory location. We plugged in the brakes sensor wire, and we got, as you can see, the wires for the alarm system and all that stuff going through there. And the hardest part is there's actually a little clip up there in the back that holds the cable into the pedal assembly. So we got that clipped on finally. She's just working on putting the shifter assembly in. Alright, shifter assembly is all in. It's totally done. It's ready to go. We also just pulled the old rear diff out. This is the old one. It kind of fell on Meghan, but she's okay. If you never pulled one of these diffs out, you just take the pins out of the axles, and then you just kind of take this giant bolt out from there, and you can just kind of pull the axle out like that, and then there's a bunch of bolts in there that just hold it up. So we're gonna get the new one in, which is over there in the corner, and sort of get everything ready for the trans to go in. So the new diff is all in. Just basically put it up back in there with the jack and bolted it all back in. Put this rod back in there. Everything is tight. Torque these flywheel bolts down. I think the torque spec's like 55 foot-pounds. We're gonna do it to like 60 just to be safe. So we got our clutch alignment tool. You just put the disc on there with this big side popping out, and you just kind of set this into the pilot bearing, and it holds the clutch disc in there, kind of flat, and then we can put the pressure plate in over it. Once you get all your bolts in there like this, just kind of finger tight. You want to make sure you line up the dowel pins on the flywheel so that it sinks in there nicely. And then you just want to snuggle down in a star pattern so everything sits flush, because it's actually a press fit over these things. And before you do it, make sure you wiggle this so it centers that clutch disc in the center. And then the torque spec for this is like 11 or 12 foot-pounds, but we're probably going to do it to like 15 foot-pounds. Just to be safe. That's pretty much nothing, so. Okay, so as you guys saw, we got the transmission in. We just real quickly hooked up the shift cable. We still have to put some of the bell housing bolts in, all the axles, stuff, all that. But we hooked up the shift linkage. So now it actually goes into gear. We are having an issue because we lost the bolt that goes to the shift linkage, so I gotta probably shorten one or something for that. But we're gonna come back in the morning. Alright, so we got the axles hooked up in the front, up there, and up there. So same axles that were in here before. We just got the shift linkage stuff all set up. We mainly just had to worry about getting this stay rod washer in the way, or in the right place. And then here's this is like the return spring right there. We had to make a bolt to actually connect the shift linkage itself up here. All right, now I'm going to throw the drive line in. This is from the 5-speed Legacy that we pulled the transmission from and everything. They're a little bit different. This front section is a little bit longer on the 5 speeds because the transmission's shorter, so you got to have one of these. So it just bolts in like a normal drive shaft, just 2 here and then 4 back there. So I'm going to throw that in real quick. Alright, so we're going to go over the wiring a little bit. All we really need to do, this is kind of the lazy way to do it, but these 2 connectors right here, or the 2 wires, the green one with a black stripe and the black one with a white stripe, that go to the shift selector from the automatic transmission. These are for your reverse lights. So we grabbed this little piece of the harness from the manual transmission and just connected it to the 2 wires that go to the white sensor on the back of the manual transmission, and that basically works the reverse lights. So what we're going to do is leave this in here to act as our neutral switch. The car will work. It's not ideal. You're really supposed to wire it up the proper way with the neutral switch, and you gotta put in a relay, and there's a bunch of different things online on how to do that. But this is just the quick and easy way to make it work. The car will work. So really this is all you got to do, and then just connect this, and then the one inside that we already showed you with the key, and that's basically it for wiring. So we're gonna wrap this up in electrical tape. Don't mind these are I kind of messed these up, and so I reconnected them. So we're gonna wrap all this back up in electrical tape, hook up our speedo sensor. We should be good. Okay, so we got everything buttoned back up. Just threw the intake back on, make sure everything's plugged in. So we should be good to give it a first startup. She's alive. Alright, so we got a bit of bad news. Everything basically worked, but the transmission we got from the junkyard is making a really bad sound. I'll insert a clip here. We basically think it's the center diff, like maybe the bearings in the center diff. So oops, sorry. We're taking one of these spare ones we have. I just started taking it apart. So this is the center diff. This is like the tail housing of the transmission. So I'm thinking it's this bearing right here, making that clanking sound in 4th gear. Because it's only in 4th gear. All the other gears are fine, except for 5th. It's like once you get the transmission spinning at a certain speed, it starts making that rattle sound. I think it's one of these bearings. So we're gonna pop the old one apart and see if the bearing looks like it's fucked, or maybe it's the center diff and we can just swap this guy in there. Okay, so we're not really sure exactly what's wrong because all these bearings seem fine, except for this has a little bit more play than we think it's supposed to. So we're gonna swap over this whole tail housing.
This side also has play, but not quite as much as that one.
Yeah.
This is one that I had laying around, and this is a center diff that I had laying around from the same transmission. And it's, I don't know if you can hear that. It makes like a teeny bit of noise that I think is normal. This one's louder.
Yeah, so it might actually be the center diff making all the noise.
Hear that?
That could be the sound we're
I don't know if you guys can hear that at all. But I'll do it with this one again.
There's a little noise, but not as much as that. That's a lot. So
Yeah.
we're gonna throw all this back together. We're supposed to use a paper gasket, but we're gonna use RTV.
Yeah, so we're going to use a different transfer case cap with different bearings in it, even though we're not really sure if that was the problem. And then the center diff that I had laying around.
Yeah, if you guys want to watch a video on how to do this more in depth, we have a how-to guide on that on our channel as well. So we're just gonna throw this back together now. Okay, so we put it all back together. We're gonna drive it, see what the fuck happens, because at this point I don't really care. So let's see. Should we go up Logie, you think?
It's your choice.
Okay, so we're gonna end this video here. It works. We're happy with it. Not really sure what that noise was all about, but it doesn't seem to be doing it now. So thank you guys for watching. If you guys have any questions, put them in the comments. See you next time.